Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L coming in to talk about Mahoka, or like Irregular of Magic High School. I think that's the full title, yeah. But yeah, hey, we're season 2. It's actually here. Who would have thought? Well, actually, after the movie, it was kind of clear we're going to season 2. But still, we're here. We're going to talk about episode 1. Here's how this video is going to go. I'm going to tell you my top 5 moments, and then we're going to go into a more proper review session, talking about the episode. Just going to tell you from the very beginning, I think that the episode is flawed in terms of an adaptation. The material itself is alright, but I think there's a few points here that are they're kind of sketch. I haven't read the novel, but I feel like if I did read the novel, I feel like a lot of my concerns would be alleviated because it just reeks of bad adaptation practice. But before that, let's talk about my top 5 moments. So my top 5 moments, they all kind of help create an overall picture for Lena, but they were Lena at the shrine only. Then my second moment is Miyuki versus Lena. My third moment was when Tatsuya was exposing Lena pretty much with all the things about her name, just pretty much cornering her. My fourth moment was Tatsuya figuring out that the mission most likely had a second purpose. That is, Lena's mission had a second purpose. My fifth top moment was Lena picking a fight with Tatsuya. And my sixth top moment was Ben at the end revealing that they knew about people for a month ago, like fugitives or whatever. They knew where the location was. So those were my top 6 moments. Let's just walk through them now properly. Starting with moment number 1, Lena at the shrine. So the reason that this one is a top moment for me is because this kind of establishes, well, a lot of the moments establish who Lena is, but this is like a really ridiculous moment. When you look at this moment in the episode, it's kind of funny in that, oh, American girl thinking that she's blending into the environment, but it's like, girl, where is your judgment? The big thing here is Lena's judgment, I think, is very much in question, and this is one of those moments that build into it. Now, one thing that I think comes out when you look at this is you got to kind of question, like, what exactly happened here that we don't know of. Because at this point, after the scene is over, we know that she's already seen Tatsuya as a target, and it's like, he's a target, and you're following him to a shrine, and you're being very stupid about it. Like, this isn't just simply someone being bad at spy work. This is just really unfortunate. So it was a really interesting moment, but what I really loved about it was that it got to be a joke later when Buddy Guy had made fun of her, calling her a magical girl. I enjoyed that. Now, for Miyuki versus Lena, this was a really important moment because this one reeked of light novel setup. Now, there are 2 big details that we get from this moment. One is that it tells us that in the school, Lena is a big deal. Look at the crowd that formed when Lena and Miyuki are having their showdown. That's a lot of people. Even the third years are there. So it tells us that there is some hullabaloo going on about the exchange student. It's unfortunate we don't get to see that, or it doesn't get expressed better, but we should assume that is the case. Now, the other thing it shows is Lena's flaw here, and her strengths technically. Look at the rhetoric that Sasagawa used to describe that conflict, right? Ultimately, they were saying that Miyuki won because of strategy, whereas Lena was on paper had better statistics or something like that. I think her thing was she had better speed, maybe better power. But what they ultimately showed there was how Miyuki won. So this is a thing where, like, if Miyuki was to have another fight with Lena seriously, then it's probably going to come back to this whole thing about, well, Sirius might be better on paper, but Miyuki's smarter. That's pretty much what that's when you have a woman saying that one person won because of strategy, what they're really saying is that one person's a musclehead and the other person is just smarter. And honestly, when you see the way Lena behaves, probably not the smartest tool in the shed, in all honesty. And then we go into the next top moment. The whole thing with Tatsuya exposing Lena, like, the whole thing with the name is honestly very hilarious. What makes this moment cool is just it shows us how competent Tatsuya is on the other side here, and it makes sense, right? Like, these people are military families, and they're connected to one of the strongest families in Japan at this point, and it's like, well, obviously they're gonna keep track. Like, when magicians are moving across borders, we see how dangerous it is. We know that this is an exception. Obviously, everyone who's involved in the intelligence community is gonna be like, yo, this is clearly them spying. This is them trying to figure out. The Americans are trying to figure something out, right? At the very least, that's what someone's gonna think when the Americans suddenly declare that they're gonna have an exchange program. So of course, when Tatsuya goes in and starts talking about her name, it's just hilarious. It's just the whole thing is hilarious. Like, from the perspective of the U.S., or like from the perspective of someone seeing what the US is doing, it's like if the US is trying to hide Lena's identity, having a girl who is named Angelina and using her nickname Angie for her code name is pretty stupid. That's pretty stupid. If we say that they're trying to hide her identity, which honestly it looks like they are trying to, given that this girl wears a mask. But what makes it even stupider is that the remainder of her name is the rest of her public name. Angie for the code name, Lena for the rest of the name. Like, really, there's no words to describe how stupid this is. Honestly, someone making the connection when they know, like, just the basic stuff about Sirius, it's like, look, like, think about it, right? First off, weird circumstances. A girl, there's a commander named Angie Sirius. A girl shows up. Her name is Lena. She shows up on weird circumstances. And the rest of her name has the name of the person that we know is a big asset for the US. Like, what is the thought process here, right? It's pretty stupid. This one just says like the US itself is stupid, but at the same time it's like, to some degree, this kind of reflects on the writer, I think, a little bit, just because I don't think the US is that incompetent that they would make such a stupid maneuver. But again, it all depends on like how actually hidden this woman's identity is, which, given the contents of the episode, it seems like it's relatively hidden because of the masking issue. But you know, maybe let's keep holding it off, although, like, again, the moments do just express how stupid the whole situation is. We go to moment 4, specifically where Tatsuya is saying that this is pretty weird and that it's most likely something else. So this was just really good because in this one, he essentially figures out that there is some kind of mislead going on. Now, mind you, he probably can't figure out that Lena is being misled, and we know she's being misled because of the way that some things are phrased in the episode. But at the very least, when Tatsuya is saying that, that is just showing that he is ahead of the curve, right? That's just a moment that just establishes how competent that character is in general. So that's why it's a top moment. Moment 5, when Lena picks the fight with Tatsuya, it's like, you know, way to blow your cover. So this moment is important because of just the characterization for Lena. But before we get to that, it's just great to see that Lena lives up to being a terrible spy. Especially that moment where she blurts out that she's gone and met the president before. So what I really enjoy in this moment, aside from just the intimate moment that the two shared with Lena going on the offensive all of a sudden, like, Jesus, you're crazy, girl. What I really take away from this is just like, I don't understand how this person could even be a commander of a unit, right? Because if we assume that unit is even a little bit secretive, it's like, how are you a commander when you're just blurting out random information when you get flustered? And it just really reminds me that children should not be commanders of anything that requires any level of secrecy. And what I really take away from this moment is that it's really amazing that the USNA hasn't had more information leaks when you have a commander at the level of competency of this child. And 6, Ben reveals that they knew where the criminals were a month ago. So this was just really, this was a good moment because it confirmed what Tatsuya was saying earlier in the episode. So that's how we know he's right. And it also just pushes the whole thing, especially when he says that they knew where the vigilantes were a month ago. Oh, sorry, the fugitives were a month ago. I don't recall if he says since a month ago or if they knew where they were a month ago just from looking in the past. But you know, them revealing that and then revealing that the whole mission is going to be swapped around in priority, it does just kind of make you feel like Lena is just a useful idiot or a useful pawn. And this leads us into the two big things I'm going to talk about for the review, specifically Lena's characterization and also the USNA's decision-making skills and also the pacing within the episode. So with Lena's characterization, when you take all those top moments together, what I'm really thinking is just like, this girl is pretty stupid, man. Like, this girl is not smart in any which way, at least not from what I'm seeing. And when I look at what I'm being told, they're telling me that she is the commander of a USNA group, and it's like, or stars, I believe. But I think command takes judgment fundamentally, even without being like, even if you're not good at spy work, commanding people takes judgment. Do you think Lena has good judgment? because the entire episode is saying she doesn't know how to properly behave in Japanese society because she gives herself away with that weird outfit. She can't keep her mouth shut for long enough. Does that scream someone that has good judgment? Nah, man, nah. The moment that you have someone berating her for being stupid, or for not adapting to the trends of the area very well, the girl doesn't have good judgment. So for me, especially in Mahoka, where you have a situation where Tatsuya, despite being the main character, he still takes commands from people that know better, like the military. Yeah, pretty much the military. He still takes commands from them. Why can't Lena be the same? Why do you have to give her commander role? And like, let's not even talk about Tatsuya has good judgment. I hope it's Tatsuya. Tatsuya. Oh, whatever. You guys don't know who I'm talking about. He has good judgment. But then you see this girl, and it's like, you guys pale in comparison. Really, the girl Angelina, she should just be a weapon. She is essentially just a nice force on the battlefield. And if she is just a force on the battlefield, you don't need to give her command. You just tell her what to do and she'll do it. Tatsuya could do it, anyone else can do it, right? That's how I would kind of see that. But there's even more moments that just makes her seem inferior. And for this, it also, the way that the episode is constructed does not help the situation. When you look at the episode, we're actually transitioning through a lot. Like there was one segment where we were like at I think New Year's Eve, and then we transitioned over to the next day, New Year's. Those transitions, that's not natural. Usually a light novel is not going to spend like a few lines in one paragraph about one particular day where the kids were talking to their aunt, right? That's not going to happen. When you look at the episode and you look at the structure, you're going through like so many different transitions. A lot of information is most likely being skipped. Like Lena most likely was spying on Tatsuya. There's most likely words about how exactly she figured out Tatsuya was a target. There's more information going on in the background. And when you see the way that they structured the episode, there was even one bit where they had gone back to a flashback of them at the lunchroom, and this is like really the one that tells me that this is just badly handled, because you first met, or the group met Lena in the lunchroom for cafeteria, right? Some more events happen in the episode, and then you have Lena talking to her allies, and she flashes back to the lunchroom. My question is, why can't you have that scene with the name earlier in the episode? Now, mind you, this might be a little bit unfair of a point, because, you know, at the end of the day, you can make anything work, but that jarring jump back and forth to a time period that we already had kind of seen before, when compounded with the transitions, just makes everything seem very suspect. But that's the big thing. The episode definitely is rushed. When you look at the episode and you look at what they chose to tell us, it really does seem like they prioritized giving us all the essential information as fast as they could. That seems to be what the prioritization was here. And one of those things that were dropped was definitely like how the rest of the school reacted to Lena. Lena just like goes in so well. She just smoothly slips in. I definitely think there's some kind of talk about the environment being skipped here. Now, when you have fast pacing and you have a character who looks really incompetent, when you bring those two things together, things get kind of worse. And the big scene that really tells me that this is making Lena look stupider than she is where she was talking to her assistant, when she was telling her about the whole situation with Tatsuya like grilling her on her name. Like her assistant asks her if she should be worried, and then the girl just says, "Oh no, let's not be worried. After all, he's just a high school student. I'm not gonna let him get the best of me." And it's like, girl, let's remember, just a high school student. Just a high school student is what she is, and look at her. She's currently involved in a pretty big operation. Just a high school student, that's not correct. You have suspicions on him. You suspect him to be the target you're supposed to be pursuing. That's not just a high school student by the very definition of what you're doing. How insane are you? You can't just say he's just a high school student when you suspect him of being one of the most dangerous people in the world. Those two things that doesn't mesh very well. Who okayed that line? That's a stupid line. And then you go into the immediate scene after where she's approaching this just a high school student. She's approaching him on him being more than he outwardly appears to be, and then you end up with her picking a fight with the supposedly just a high school student. If he was just a high school student, why did you suspect him so much that you had to go up to him and like show off whatever bloodlust you had going on, and you had to talk about how you value being on the battlefield more than academic success, blah 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 blah, whatever she said. There isn't a continuity of thought there. That is probably the stupidest thing in the episode. And honestly, I don't. That is so overtly stupid that it can't be the original writing's fault. Now, mind you, again, with the situation with the naming convention, honestly, that's that's an oversight at the very least. But I feel like this other part, I feel like this is an issue of the anime. Maybe I want to give the writing material, the original writing credit here, but I feel like this is the anime in going too quickly across the episode. They might have left out some critical detail. Like really, all you need to justify it is a detail that tells you what Lena was thinking at that particular moment in time, and maybe a better transition between the two scenes. Again, having a scene where she is saying that this guy is not that big of a deal, then having an immediate scene right after where she is like, it's even funny because she says that she's not going to be taken in by this guy, or she's not going to be tripped up by this guy. What happens in the next scene immediately after? Tripped up immediately after. She already blurts out that she's gone off with the president. Immediately after, she's blurting things out. So really, like, where do you end up with this particular character? Well, she's talking the talk, right? Like, she's saying that she's this big thing, but it's like, no. In every single scene that you've shown us that you're really incompetent. Which really leads me to the final note of, when I look at Lena, I definitely don't think that I don't think she's a commander for real. I think the USNA is probably just taking advantage of her. When you consider what Tatsuya was saying at the beginning of the episode, and you look at the way the episode unfolded, it's like, it seems more likely the USNA is just like, yo, just put her in Japan. We know where these guys are. We're just gonna have her there, and then she'll be able to deal with them, because that's what she actually is. She's just an attack dog. Just put her there. We'll manipulate the situation. She'll deal with them, and we'll absolve ourselves of this little whole mess. Like, who knows? Maybe those villains are like a product of the USNA, right? This really just seems like this girl is just being manipulated, because everything else about her, it just seems she's not right for the job. That's really what it ultimately comes down to. I totally believe that she's totally good for combat, but everything else, this girl has no judgment. And that's really where I come out of here saying, especially when you have a scene of her making a statement and then immediately after proving herself wrong. When you have that kind of stuff happening, doesn't really paint a good picture. Doesn't paint a good picture, and in this case, the anime's pacing makes it a lot worse. Now, were there any other really great things in the episode? Well, yeah, Tatsuya's back. Like, Tatsuya was a pretty great part of the episode. Miyuki's back, you know, like, incestuous undertones everywhere. Whatever. I'm gonna just take a step back from that. There were good things in the episode, too, like finding out that Lena was a Japanese descendant, and that's why she was able to come back to Japan. Like, that was actually pretty cool. That was a really good, legitimate detail. And let's see, anything else? No. A lot of my notes are just like, Lena's pretty stupid. Oh, no, we got dropped an interesting detail that Boston, or the East Coast, is having issue with humanists. So that seems to be the magician versus humanist conflict. And it's just interesting that they made a point about how history cycles and repeats itself. So that was a really interesting point. I am kind of curious if they're going to follow up on that in the future. And of course, we saw the villains, and we saw that Lena has some trauma. Lena having trauma makes sense given what we're seeing already. Like, her having bad judgment and being manipulated. Or potentially being manipulated, that kind of makes sense to me, that she would be the person that would have trauma about having to kill someone in their group. And so that's a good characterization detail. Anyway, at the end of the episode, we see the villains. They have cool little eyes, and they're doing weird things. And from the trailers, we know vampires are around, so we're gonna assume they're vampires. Am I excited? Yes, definitely. The birds are also excited. I'm sure that they got picked up here, but yeah, guys, what did you think about this first episode of Irregular Magic High School? I think Lena's intended to be stupid. I really think that's the case. It's just like, sometimes she's stupider than I think she should be. I think that's the case. I think that the rest of the episode, though, it's definitely an issue of pacing. I think they just stripped out a lot. I think they were just trying to get through the episode as fast as possible. I do hope the pacing kind of like slows down as we go from here. Or at the very least, the transition. It's always the transitions. The jarring transitions are the ones that really make me think like, eh. But overall, I think solid episode, strong characterization episode with a special asterisk for the future. We'll have to see how much of this was intentional and how much it wasn't. And yeah, let me know what you thought down below. And until next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day.